Hey guys, my name's Paul Procise. If you haven't seen me before, I do political commentary and I do all kinds of things. You can find me on paulprocise.com, all my social medias. I'm not going to do the traditional intro to my podcast because I believe that we need to get right to the point. I have been off making videos for almost a week and a half. There's a lot of reasons for it. Family being around and fall break and neighbors doing construction, making recordings kind of ridiculous. And so I just kind of took a little bit of time off. The whole time I've been watching all the stuff that's been going on in the political landscape. And if you've watched any of this stuff before or know me at all, you know that I took a break from social media and politics, just period. I buried my head in the sand and I refused to look at politics anymore. I stopped posting about politics. I didn't do anything personal with politics. I worked in politics. I was surrounded. My life was politics. And so I had had enough. I unaffiliated from the Republican Party. I had enough. I didn't like the direction it was going. And in fact, I went so far as to not vote for Trump. I voted for who I thought was the best candidate at the time. And I really had no hope that the Trump presidency would do the right things. And then as I'm burying my head in the sand, all I really kind of hear is the headlines for 4 years, basically, of this Trump collusion. And I hear about endless reports on if he's getting peed on by somebody. And I hear all of these reports about how awful and corrupt he is in the presidency, about how he's taking money from the taxpayers and his golfing trips and all that kind of stuff. No, I don't personally care for a golf trip, but at the same time, I remember Obama going on many golf trips and spending an insane amount of time in Hawaii and going all over the world. So Trump goes to golf, and then but you add up all that time, and it's less time than on the vacations that the Obamas did. And I just think that it was as I came out right around the time of COVID, I kind of came out of my political coma. And I said, okay, I'm going to kind of pay attention. Obviously, the election's right around the corner. I'm going to open my eyes a little bit, start reading through the articles again, and really formulate a plan of attack for how I'm going to vote this time. And I went in with the opinion that Orange Man bad, and all the things that I went and go into the 2016 election kind of feeling frustrated with the Republican Party, that they're a bunch of spineless weasels that are nothing but crony capitalists. Of course, there's a few good people in Congress, and I believe that there's actually some good people on both sides of the aisle, to be honest. But I do think that there's a problem in this country with that started happening, especially after the Democrats lost 2016. And I say it like that because they really feel it was theirs to lose. And they have come out and said this in many different ways. They've come out and said we could have swung the election by just manipulating some of the algorithms on our platforms. In public, they've said these things. They've talked publicly about how they can now just start silencing voices if they don't like the thing. So what they started with was the kind of the most egregious people, like the Alex Joneses, and everybody's like, oh, well, he's just a crackpot, whatever. And here's the problem. If you don't start standing up for people, even if you disagree with them, even if they're Nazis, even if they're complete communists, even if they're total totalitarian dictatorial ideas are completely out of sync with what we believe as free thinking Americans. If we don't stand up for the people like that, or if we don't stand up for the Alex Joneses of the world, or even the flat earthers, or the ridiculous things that we see going on, and that even the and I have not looked into or understand what QAnon is about, because I refuse to go down that path. I don't I don't believe it's healthy to start worrying about conspiracy theories, but trying to figure out what's right in front of you and figuring out what's going on, like the whole Pizzagate stuff, all of that stuff. Like those things are ridiculous, but there is a place in the public arena that those things should and can be allowed to be discussed freely without being thwarted. Unless it's violent or pornographic, or calling for the violence of something, then I don't think that our public spaces need to be monitored in the way that they are right now. But what we're seeing, and like I said, I completely closed myself off to all of this. I knew that stuff was bad. Even back in 2016, things were being thwarted. But I had had enough personally. I thought I did some damage just in my own personal sphere of how I was approaching the political landscape on my social media. And so I backed off of that. I said, that's not a good approach. I want to have good, solid friendships and relationships that I can speak into when I talk about politics. And so I have really kept an open mind going into this political season and saying, who am I going to vote for? How am I going to vote for people locally in the Colorado? Because I live in the Denver metro area. How am I going to vote for propositions that are put on the ballot? How am I going to interpret like Prop 115, which is end abortion after 22 weeks unless it's medically needed, that kind of stuff. So I look into these things, and you can see my other videos on that specific topic or other topics, Colorado local. But on a national level, we started seeing what they have always said that they were going to do, and I'm talking the Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and they've started to use their algorithms to push down speech that they don't. One is not just false, but they just don't agree with. So even if it's true or it hurts their agenda, then, okay, so let's start with that. What is their agenda? And frankly, they are, the tech industry is dominated by extreme left thinking individuals. And so anything that goes against that ideology, the progressive mindset, then they really do believe that that is hateful speech. That's how they've been taught in schools. That's what they've been taught and indoctrinated in their college degrees. This woke idea of white guilt and why we should feel bad for being whatever. The identity politics has not only just been dialed up a notch, it's gone not only past 11, it's just cranked up to 100. Like there's so many of us in society that kind of buried our head in the sand and just went about our lives and did the things that we were trying to do and not worry so much about politics. Didn't realize that the frog in the pot had jumped right into a boiling pot already, and it had been turned up to full blast, and we were oblivious to it. The problem we are seeing now is not only are the people of Alex Jones's stature and I don't know what his name, the dude that made Vice or helped make Vice, McGinnis, whatever, you guys tell me. I don't get into all of that stuff. Are being thwarted or completely banned because they start up Proud Boys or because they, whatever. Like, who cares what those people say? If you don't like their speech, it literally takes about 2 seconds to click out of their website or to not read their bullcrap. That's the only censorship that should be happening in our sphere. But we see the far leftists saying everything is being said is hate-filled. Everything that is said is racist. And we can't have everything like this in our society. And then we see these platforms using a Title 230, and they're hiding behind this because they're saying, hey, we are not publishers, so we can't be held to the same standards. But now they're completely editorializing. And when I post stuff on my personal page on Facebook, my political speech page, then I get pushed down. When I first started it, I was getting seriously thousands of engagement on my posts. Now I get 8, 9, 10. It's crazy. I've been labeled as conservative, and I've been labeled as, and I can show you, I think I have posted before that they are posting, like they covered up a picture of Biden holding a microphone and said it was sexually explicit. Anytime you get anything on your page called that's labeled sexually explicit, it throttles you. It starts to push you further and further down. And then I posted something from the New York Post, and they said it was false news. And then I posted another thing that they said was complete false news, and they click over to a Reuters page. Here's the kicker. One of those false news flags that I got was from Reuters, and then Reuters fact-checked their own fact-check. But my page was called false news. And then that hurts my algorithm of reaching more people. So I go into this election really trying to explore everything. I had my own walkaway movement. I've done a video about that. But I left the Republican Party because I felt that the big government, progressive wing of the Republican Party had taken over. The Bushes of the world, the globalist ideas, the things that promoted endless wars are not conservative ideas. Those are not conservative in nature. Pushing these giant military industrial complexes. And of course, conservatives support the military. We support the police that are good. We support good, honorable actions. We support good people, firefighters and EMS, and we support the good servers, the good people. And of course there's bad actors. We support our pastors, but there's bad pastors. I've worked with them. There's good things in this world, and there's bad things. And one of the bad things that I'm seeing when I came out of my coma of the social media stuff is that we are being pushed down further and further. If you talk about abortion, that gets throttled. If you talk about, you're free to talk about abortion as long as it's pro. If you're against it, you get throttled or banned. Live Action has seen a lot of this stuff in the last few years. If you promote anything new that's breaking, you get throttled. If you say COVID is not what it seems to be, the data is flawed, and then you quote, even if you quote the CDC, you can get throttled because the CDC has flip-flopped back and forth so many times, not only in the last 6 months, but in the last 10 years. And if you go back and look at what they've said about masks just a few years ago, and then what they say about masks today, and then they go back again and say it, like they flip-flopped on this several times. And if you just point out these flip-flops, you get throttled or banned or suppressed or suspended. And I'm like, why in the world is this happening? So I start looking into this. And of course, I'm not all I heard for 4 years about how bad Trump is on his Twitter account, blah, blah, blah. So I start looking into it. Like I said, I hadn't really known anything, just the highlights, just what I hear on the evening news, kind of in passing. And then most of the time I'm like, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. I just don't, I can't. I lived so much of my life living in that world, putting all my energy into politics, and I had enough, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so when I finally emerge and I hear Trump is so bad over and over and over, I look at sites like TikTok, and I look at the sites all over the place, and the like everything I look at is Trump is bad, Trump is bad, Trump is a racist, Trump is a homophobe, Trump is removing all the rights for the LGBTQ community, Trump is bad. And I'm like, man, I don't think I can vote for this guy again. Not again, but this time around. I know I'm no fan of Biden because I was really aware of a lot of the nonsense that went on. And then I know that during this time that I emerged, the proceedings of the impeachment's taken place. So I start looking into the facts of the case. And then I realize there's no there. That they had made all of this up. They had based all of this on some fake phone call or fake collusion. There was a phone call, but then you listen to the transcript of the phone call and there's nothing there. Like, wait a second. What the heck is going on? And then I go through email and all of these things. And then you look at the Hillary scandal with her emails. And you look at the Trump collusion. He's colluding with it. And almost inevitably, anytime you hear somebody like that saying that Trump's guilty, almost inevitably, what do we find out is they're guilty of that. And how do we know that they're guilty of collusion? Is because now finally we get literal evidence, and that has been thwarted by the social media world again. So let me just show you what I'm talking about in that case. Now, all of you have seen this, because if you're listening to me, you know that you're most likely conservative leaning, maybe libertarian, most likely not a liberal listening to me. But we all know now that Twitter, Facebook really stepped in it this time, because they went after the New York Post and they didn't even fact check. In fact, they started thwarting things before the official fact checks came out. All right, so I'm just drinking some coffee here. All right, so Hunter Biden, turns out, had been getting paid to collude with their dad, Joe Biden. At that time, the current vice president of the United States. How do we know this? Because we have emails now. We also have his laptop, how it was obtained. That's for you guys to worry about. So the New York Post comes out and posts this. And then today we actually find that there's pay to play for China as well. But we can't find that on social media. You have to go to their websites individually, or go to one of the conservative websites, the Daily Wire, the Blaze, any of those political talking heads. You can find these things, but you can't find it anywhere else. And in fact, if you try to URL click or post it in Facebook, find out what happens. Can't do it. It's not possible. In fact, we're going to do a live thing. I'm going to see if I can post this on Facebook and see what happens here in a little bit. There's a new one that just came out today. So we have I'm just pull this up. We have a lot of things. And by the way, Jack Dorsey, CEO of Twitter, will be subpoenaed to testify on post-censorship. I know that there was supposed to be the day before the election, but this has been hearing Tuesday to compel Twitter's executive to testify about censorship on the Post's reporting on Ukraine and China-related documents from a Hunter Biden hard drive. So we'll take a look at that post as well. So Biden email or secret emails. This came out yesterday. All right. So smoking gun email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP Dad. He was the current vice president at the time. We go through and we have all the documents right here in writing, corroborated evidence, the Post would not post this if they did not have at least the facts. And then what happened is they post this on their social media, of course, and it gets not just thwarted, not just pushed down, not just banned or shadow banned. It's a URL. You can't even post it. Now, that may have changed the last few days, so we're going to go ahead and check this. We're going to post this on my personal page, the Pal Pro Size page here on Facebook, and we're going to see what happens. All right, so this is what pops up. I'm not going to post any editorial and find out what happens. It may have changed, but we've seen video out there of it. Oh, it went through. Holy crap. Now let's see if it gets any engagement. Okay, this happened at 9:50 a.m. on Thursday, Mountain Standard Time. We'll see. We'll see if it gets any traction at all. All right. I think that they've learned their lesson that they can't flat out URL ban this because it's been so hardly hit. But we see more things coming out. This today, by the way, emails reveal how Hunter Biden tried to cash in big on behalf of family with Chinese firm. And they've got the actual emails. You guys can see this article, and I'll post this as well on my page, and we'll see how this does as well. All right. For your reading pleasure. All right. Let's see if anything happens with that as well. Chat directly with customers, not now. I don't have customers unless you want to go to my MHK website and buy some t-shirts to support this channel. I would very much appreciate it. And by the way, MHK is Make Him Known. Let's go ahead and look at that. Let's look at my page here real quick. Real quick, guys. So MHK is Make Him Known clothing. It's taken from the idea of John 17, to know Christ and make him known. It's just a little editorializing on my part, but it's just, I intend this to be conversation starters. So on Teespring website, you can find different designs of MHK, Make Him Known. So if you guys are so inclined, go there and support me in my efforts here. You get a little something back. Portions of the proceeds come back to me, and I can continue to doing these things. I think they're good. They're cool designs. I've got a whole bunch more designs on the website. Oh, what happened to my? Oh, there we go. So we have different floral designs. We have Make Him Known. We even have stuff for a dog. Okay, let's go ahead and check that. All right, so back to our regular scheduled programming. Biden calls press lid after this. So yesterday, this news comes out, and then early in the day, he calls a lid. Now, I've talked about lids before. This is from the Blaze. But lids in political speech or political practice are, at the end of the day, you call a lid, the press kind of stops asking you questions, and you can go about your business, you can rest, that kind of stuff. Almost traditionally, it's at the end of the night, 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. You call a lid, and then that's it. And that's normally for bigger campaigns, like big Senate races might have press following them around 24/7. So you call a lid on that. You call a lid in the presidential races because you've literally got people following around like puppy dogs all over the place trying to get quotes from you all the time. You just call a lid, and the press leaves you alone. That's traditionally how it's worked. So, but we've seen story after story that he calls lids literally at 9 a.m. leading up to the debates, or to the first debate. I guess not debates. We've only had one debate with the president, the president and the vice president. So he calls a lid. So he gets called. This story leaks, and he calls a lid. It's crazy to me. I don't understand how anybody can see this with their eyes and deny that there's not something here. And I go through and I look on my Facebook timeline with all my liberal friends who are all good people. I love all my actual friends. Like, I have friends that are just liberal, and that's okay. I support them. I love them. The things that I'm seeing come out of their mouths or their typing, because it's more anonymous when you type, are just factually inaccurate. I'm seeing that Biden never would collude with, I have one friend that's going every single day posting one amazing fact about Biden every single day. And almost 3 days in a row, there was a fact about how he didn't collude with Russia, how he wasn't involved with Ukraine, and how he is excited to work with China, but we see through these things that he's literally working with China, that his son is bringing him opportunities, and that they corroborated emails that he did, in fact, meet with these representatives from both countries, Ukraine and Russia and China. So 3 countries, that Biden was paid millions and millions of dollars for this access, Hunter Biden, to gain access to his dad, and his dad worked with him. This is the future president of the United States if he wins. But we have 4 years of that Trump didn't win. He stole the election through from Russia. Russia helped him. Russia collusion, blah, blah, blah. It turns out all of that's a lie based on bad information, based on a lie paid for by the Clinton campaign, paid for and colluded by. We know now for a fact that Biden did the unmasking and Trump was involved, or not Trump, excuse me, Obama was involved. We have emails and handwritten notes from the FBI saying that there was nothing there, that there was nothing that they could find on Trump in any way, shape, or form. And Obama opens up the investigation and keeps it going. And then they make all of this stuff using FISA warrants. Oh, by the way, the Patriot Act is so great. Great, thanks. FISA warrants are made bigger and better, and just carte blanche. You can spy on anybody you want now, thanks to the Patriot Act, and they're using this bullcrap Republican law to get things through and to spy literally on their opposition. This is what Obama did. Obama did this, and so did Biden. They're all guilty. They're all colluding against the Trump, who was in transition, and then they used their deep state. I know that's a term thrown around, but the people that were in charge of the FBI and other agencies colluded together to try to get Trump, to invalidate his presidency and to launch an attack and to ensure that he would not win again. They just kept going and going and going and going. And then we see the manipulating the mail-in ballot system, and they used COVID as a way to instill fear and doubt in the electorate. And the whole time I'm still thinking, man, I just can't stand Trump's temperament. I don't like it. And then my wife asks me this: what does temperament have to do with actual actions? What does his Twitter feed have to do with anything other than what he's actually doing? And so I'm like, okay, I will ignore for now. I will ignore the things that he does on Twitter. I will look at what his actions actually are. We see Trump pulling troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq. They're not done yet. He promised he would. That's a frustration for me. I would hope that he could pull the troops 100% out and stop the bombings. That's what I'm hopeful for. There might be some practical reasons why we're still over there. I don't understand it all. That's not what I don't have a whole lot of study and understanding into that area. But I know that it was one of the campaign promises that hasn't happened. He's building a wall. Well, he's not building a wall, the liberals will say. He's building a three-piece fence, so he didn't build a wall. Okay. Why did he, and I start looking at that, why did he decide to go with the 3-tiered fence? Because the people on the border said, no, we want to be able to see through the other side. So if you just build a wall, we can't see through to the other side. We can't see what's going on. We need a transition. We need walls. We need slatted fences, these giant things with these big metal slab things, but we need to be able to see to the other side. He's like, oh, okay, let's do that. But what I hear from my left, and I see my friends saying, oh, he promised a wall and didn't build it. Well, there's been a lot of things stopping it. Courts trying, like not even on the border, courts in the, what is it, 7th Judicial District, I think, 7th. You guys correct me. Put a stop to this stuff. Like, there's just a lot of things that went into it. And then I come to discover, and I start watching video after video of him and the vice president being the most pro-life president and administration that I've ever seen. I have never seen actions in the pro-life movement from any administration ever as much as I've seen in this Trump administration. It's crazy to me. Honestly, that shocks me. I see movements of pro Second Amendment. I see him doing things that I never thought. I really do. I think he's still a populist. I think he'll say whatever it takes to get in. And maybe he's doing these things because he thinks that that's what's going to take to get reelected. I don't think that is true anymore. There's just a lot of things that I'm like, holy crap. He did a lot of stuff that I actually agree with. And when you wade through the nonsense of the press and the left and the Fox News bullcrap and all the other talking head pundits that I might gravitate to, and I stop and just look at the actions, and I'm saying there's a lot of good things. I do not like the amount of spending that's going on. There's more spending now than even Obama did. That's not good. He said he would fix Obamacare. That hasn't happened, but you can't. Honestly, a president can't do that. That's something that has to go. I know that's political campaign speech, but a president can't do that unless they just become a dictator and write it with a pen. There's some executive orders I'm not a fan of. I don't like that he's just making the pharmaceutical industry adhere to the same standards by a pen. I think that that's stuff that should come through Congress. I don't think that should be an executive order from this president, but that's what he's doing. So there's a lot of things that are being done that I don't agree with from this president. And then I look at the things that are on the other side of the aisle, what are being done, what are being said. We look at months. In the name of George Floyd, we see riots and protests. We've had, as a result of all of these protests, over 40 deaths directly associated with the riots and protests. I see the press calling this peaceful protests, and it's not true. It's just simply not true. Are there peaceful protests out there? Sure. Are there some unsubstantiated, uncorroborated claims of 99% of these are peaceful protests? No, it's not true. It's simply not true. And we can know that because we can see the reports. We can go on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook nightly for the last 120, 30 days now and see riots and protests and violence and murders as a result of these protests. We see here in Colorado, Project Veritas yesterday and the last 2 days have released Democrat executive committee member colluding and flat out calling for violence in our streets to get the stuff he wants done. Look into that. Project Veritas, I'm telling you. Here in the state of Colorado. Actual communist type member calling for lying, cheating, stealing, even murder if he has to get things done here in Colorado. A swing state. It's not really a swing state anymore. It votes fairly liberal. But why is that? Because they lie, steal, and cheat their way to power just to get this done. And I'm telling you guys, I awoke from my coma to find all of this happening. I'm like, what the heck is happening? And then we find more and more things like the integrity project, or the transition integrity project. Have you guys looked into this? You need to look into the transition integrity project. A literal plan in place for if Biden wins, if it's a toss-up, if it's ambiguous win, or Trump flat out wins. Every one of these scenarios, the Transition Integrity Project, and you find the people that are behind this, literally are calling for violence in the street, no matter what the victory is. No matter who wins. If Biden wins, we'll have to accept it. If Trump wins, we'll have to accept it. But they don't want to accept this, and they're calling for violence. They're even calling for civil war. And this is crazy talk. And then I see my friends on the right saying, well, if there's civil war, they don't know who they're messing with. We've got all the guns. And that's factually inaccurate. It's, you guys are putting your hand in the sand or listening to your echo chamber of all the gun-toting Republican, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we're so much better than you. You don't know who you're waking up. The only way that you should be waking up is getting out to vote. Now, if somebody comes for your family or whatever, sure, stand up for them. I have guns. I have ways of protecting myself. I have put in place ways to do that. But that said, I am never, ever going to call for violence, and I hope that you guys aren't either. And I hope that we can be a virtuous people and do the right thing and stop this ridiculous notion or thought that, oh, they don't know who they're messing with. They're going to come, because we see how they act. We see Antifa literally gunning down conservatives in the street. It's happened. We see here in Denver, Colorado, a news agency colluding with agitators to follow them around to instigate fights so they can get stuff on their nightly news. Fact. 9 News hires somebody from Pinkerton. Pinkerton denies that this guy even existed. He doesn't even have a concealed carry permit, we find out. That could be fact or false. Differing news agencies have reported on this and had different things. So he either did have a permit or he didn't have a permit. But we see a guy that is in the middle of a fight, slaps the guy, and he pulls out a gun and shoots him because he got slapped. And we see 9 News covering their butts, using Dallas as their cover. Well, Dallas NBC News did a story, so let me kick off to them. There was a nightly news thing a couple nights ago where they showed. And then there's missing pictures in their story, 9 News. Oh, no, we've released them all. Well, they omitted 2, and then they gave 2 back. The whole sequence doesn't make sense. I'm going to do another video on that here coming very soon because it's a long story. None of it makes sense. There's a lot of people that are covering it, but I think there's something that you guys have not noticed. I'm going to cover that here soon. Look for that here shortly. There's a lot to discuss, but I'm here to say that after all the things that I've done and looked into and investigated, I walked away from the Republican Party. I'm still not a Republican. I'm not going to be a Republican. I don't like the Republican Party and how it operates. I think the Colorado Republican Party is absolute trash. They're disorganized. They have no understanding. They rejected the Tea Party and all the people that were trying to get some things good. And as a result, the chaos that has ensued for the last 4 to 8 years within the Republican Party and longer, and the disorganization and the terrible ideas that have been put, and the I know better than you, and we don't want your kind here that's happened in the Colorado Republican Party, directly resulted in me leaving that crap of an organization. So all of that said, everything that I've investigated in, everything that I've put my time and effort into the last 6 months, looking into these things, starting up a podcast in the middle of COVID, in the worst times you can do this because everybody's doing a podcast. I've decided that I'm going to vote for Trump. I hope you join me in voting for Trump this year. My name is Paul Prosise. There are a lot of things that we need to discuss. I'm hoping to kick out some more videos here real soon and podcasts. Would you join me? Make sure you find me on Twitter at Paul Prosise, forever long, but make sure you're really following me on Parler at Paul Prosise on Parler. Locals, paul.locals.com. I can't thank you guys enough for getting me to this point, and I hope that you guys share, like, and subscribe. All those things. Make sure you are following me on all the platforms. But make sure you're really following me on Parler and Locals, paul.locals.com, because the other places might go away, unfortunately. You guys have a great day. See ya.